Long live President Zuma, long live. Long live Mkhonto weSizwe, long live. Amandla. Yo, comrades, for a second I thought I was in Mabhida Stadium. That I'm in the Western Cape. I think this is a confirmation that indeed our election was rigged. Oh, Ndamanga. It's a clear indication. Because the resounding spirit that's here is a clear confirmation of what Mkhonto weSizwe was actually bigger in the Western Cape than most people think they are. There's no doubt about that. But I think I've been given an opportunity, if you give me some time. I've been doing my own assessment on what's been happening, firstly within this country. And what's special about the Western Cape is that this is where, funny enough, let's be honest, our problem started. Our problem started in this province when the dromedaries, the Reicheg, the Goede Hoop came here, and they were passing through the trade corridor. Yeah? In as much as they converted Robben Island into a prison, it was actually the trading platform where all the ships would stop and then they'd be trading over there. But even the history tells us a lot about why the Western Cape is so important for these white monopoly capital, neoliberal colonialists today. It is because it is the heart of global trade. All ships from everywhere, whether it's south-south or east and west, they all go past these shores here. And that is why, and I actually asked someone at one point, Commander, I said, why is it that the Western Cape, when it's the most southern point of Africa, referred to the Western Cape? Has it maybe got to do with something related to the West? Or the interest of the West? Because it is the most southern point of Africa. So why are we referring to it as the Western Cape? Or the Cape Colony in the West? Oh. Hey, this English sometimes. But the campus shows me bottom being south and west being elsewhere, right? But I get your point of Cape Colony. But for me, it then resonated with a number of issues to say, we as Mkhonto weSizwe being the only party that actually recognizes the kings, the queens, the originators of the land, the Khoisan San people, is a clear indication that Mkhonto weSizwe is a spiritual party. It is a spiritual party. It is our ancestors' reincarnation. It's a reincarnation process that we are going through, where our ancestors are living through us. And I actually went to the point of saying that every single person that voted for Mkhonto weSizwe is because their ancestors are voting through them. Every single person that voted for Mkhonto weSizwe, it's not you that voted, it's actually your ancestor that voted. And there's no ways that Stephen Hazen has got as many ancestors as us. It can't be. Numerically, just numerically, there's more black ancestors than there is white ancestors. So how is it possible that we find ourselves not governing today? And you can tell with what has transpired in the past couple of days. When I presided over my first meeting as a member of the Portfolio Committee of Communications, Solly Malatsi, who is a DA minister, he was the spokesperson during elections of the DA. And I said to him, I find it strange that the president will make you the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. And let me tell you why, comrades, I say that. Because Portfolio Committee of the Department of Digital Communications and Digital Technologies and Communications doesn't have to do with communications in the way we do it within the party. It's got to do with technology. You've got Post Office there. You've got SETA, which is the State Information Technology Agency. You've got Telkom. You've got ICASA. You've got all these very key entities that are critical, especially because now we're getting into a knowledge economy. in order for us to participate globally, we have to be part of the knowledge economy, right? And in order for you to participate in the global economy, you need technological intervention, digitization. And all of that happens under a DA minister. In the world of cybercrime, remember, sovereignty today is based on your ability to protect yourself technologically. That's the new warfare, cybercrime, cyber warfare. But yet, you then find a president such as ours who says he's patriotic. He goes and gives that portfolio to a party that whenever there's issues in the country, the first country they go and default for assistance is the West. The West who technologically are advanced, the West who know how to manipulate systems, because in most cases the platforms and the technologies that we use are theirs, right? So you then ask yourself, and I even said to him, Minister, I want to ask you a question, and it concerns me that the president would make you the Minister of Communications, for you to preside over the State Information Technology Agency. Now, the State Information Technology Agency carries all the systems of government: Home Affairs, South African Police, Defense, Intelligence, every single. In actual fact, if you look at the CETA Act, the CETA Act is enacted by National Intelligence, which was NIA at the time, the National Intelligence Act, the South African Police Act, and the Defense Act. That's what led to the establishment of the State Information Technology Agency. And from the time at which I actually used to interact with the State Information Technology, at the time when I was selling into government, the one thing about it is that you had to go or undergo a vetting process before you can even work there. Today, it's questionable as to whether the people that are actually working there have actually been vetted. That's the one thing. And if you look at how CETA has been destabilized, it tells you a lot that they don't want it to function. Which then leads me to something which was interesting, because everything, if you do a proper observation, everything happens for a reason. You see, these people, these colonialists, these neoliberal thinkers, they always have an agenda. And you must never ever, I always ask myself, I said, whenever they do anything, whatever you see in the media from the DA, whatever program, ask yourself why. Always ask yourself why. And I said, that's the difference between, I believe, politicians today versus the heroes that we know. And that's what brought about consciousness then. They would always ask the question, why? You are with this person. You're laughing with this white man. Why are you laughing with this white man? Why would a Johan Rupert feel so comfortable to be in the Oval Office and stand and talk on your behalf as though they were the president, when they're not even a member of parliament? Why? So I then get back to the issue of Home Affairs. Home Affairs, that minister in 2018, he wrote a book in 2018. Remember at the time, and you can go and check. See, there's one thing about me, I put things as they are. Because it's about time that we conscientize ourselves and we awaken to what's happening. In 2018, already the DA was engaging with Ramaphosa himself and the ANC on the side. Right? And at that point in time, they were already planning for what we see today as a coalition government. They can't say they're having a coalition government today because of Mkhonto we Sizwe. No, it's a lie. Mkhonto we Sizwe only emerged in 2023. They were already discussing this thing in 2018. Then already. To a point where the minister today of Home Affairs, being a DA MP, he wrote a book that spoke to coalition governments in 2018. And in that book, he also speaks about electoral reforms, right? Meaning e-voting. right? So he wrote it then. So clearly, Leon Sheba must go and check. He's a Sangoma because he could tell that he's going to be a minister of Home Affairs and preside over electoral reform, which is what's happening today. You know, at the beginning of the year, when we had the State of the Nation address, Ramaphosa, Mr. Ramaphosa, in his State of the Nation address, he talks about digital identities and digitizing identities. And immediately I was sitting next to Commander Grenade and the chief whip and the party leader. And I immediately whispered to them and I said, can I tell you what's happening? And they said, what do you think? I said, you'll see what's going to happen next. They're going to be talking about e-voting. This was at the beginning of the year when I mentioned this. Guess what? What did they institute? E-voting. Right? And let me tell you, comrades, they are instituting e-voting because they've realized that they've reached the end of the road. There are no more tricks. Mkhonto Wesizwe is here. And we have seen through. We have seen through their tactics. It is not going to fly anymore. That's just the reality of what's happened. So the best way to then do it is to introduce digitizing identities, ensure that you now activate e-voting so that you have a platform that you can use for people to vote with their digital identities. Now, if they couldn't handle elections with a hybrid system, meaning you vote on paper, then it gets captured, and then the screens go down for a couple of hours, and then MK, instead of getting 2/3 majority, gets 14%. That in of itself is telling. It is a confirmation of their strategy, and we need to catch on to this very quickly. Because the same Minister of Home Affairs of the DA then makes a submission to say that they don't want SITA, which is the State Information Technology Agency, to host the National Population Registry anymore, the system. Now that it must be managed by a private company. Because now they're saying that SITA is inefficient and is not delivering according to the service level agreement that they have with them. It's a lie. Because don't forget what happens on the other side. The minister who presides over SITA himself is sabotaging SITA. He changed boards twice ever since he's been there. I'll give you another example. I presided over this matter in communications. A contract for 1.2 billion rand for education in the Western Cape, Department of Education in the Western Cape, 1.2 billion rand, was being facilitated via SITA. It was found to be irregular. But let me tell you, if you look at what has happened, they have regularized it. 1.2 billion rand. The minister had an opportunity to intervene. The minister never intervened. Because you know why? If you look at the company that's getting the contract here in the Western Cape, it's an Afrikaner company. So if that is not a way to fund your programs in the Western Cape and to fund the DA, I don't know what else could be. You know, we're not kids here. We can see what's happening. Now, that is SITA and Home Affairs. And these are the two departments we have to focus on. I can tell you now. We have to focus on those departments. Because even the Starlink transaction, you see, let's look at Starlink. Who is the shareholder who was known to be a shareholder of MTN? Ramaphosa. Yes. Right? Who's the chairperson of MTN? Jonas. right? And now Ramaphosa wanted to send Mcebisi Jonas to the US as a special envoy before this meeting. You ask yourself, especially, I'm sure you guys have seen the video, Mcebisi Jonas, where he said worse things than the outgoing, the recent ambassador. He said worse things about the administration. He said worse things, right? But Ramaphosa felt comfortable enough and confident enough to send him as the chairperson of his company. And when you do a proper assessment, you then realize that no, the reason he sent him is because the one guy who's got control there in the West, who's a South African billionaire staying there, who controls this Starlink company, yes, is actually got a relationship with MTN. As we speak, MTN has got an agreement that they've signed with Starlink, where they are currently rolling out that technology in Nigeria. So this is not by chance that these individuals are connected in this way, or what is happening the way it is. It's not. There is a bigger play and a bigger agenda here. Then if you look at how they're now trying to use the farm killings, is what they refer to, the genocide. So they go there now and they create this impression and this huge negative narrative that farmers are being killed here in the Western Cape and maybe other provinces, but they focus here because remember, they're all here, right? They go there and they say, by the way, during Zuma's time, Zuma, he stopped the drone implementation, because he felt that there was going to be espionage and collecting of data. Total lie. Total lie. What then happens is the following. If you listen to them properly, they use the farm killings or so-called genocide as a basis in a business case for them to bring in Starlink. To say, no, the only way we can solve our crime problem is because we can bring in Starlink. And Starlink has got the reach to the rural areas. Please, man. How many people from the DA went when a woman was being mauled in Santa Cruz on a racist farmer's farm by 2 pit bulls? How many? None of them. Did they ever talk about that? You'll never hear them. A child in Saldanha, a farmer drove over a child for picking up an orange on the floor, on the ground. Do you ever hear the DA saying anything about that? No. What happened now? Boomerang, the employees. Do you ever hear the DA saying anything about that? No. If you look at the stats that were presented by the Minister of Police today, out of 12 farmers that we killed, only 2 were white, the rest were black. But now they want to drive this narrative and then create an impression as though the only way to solve our problems in this country is by bringing Starlink. And then immediately after that trip, like what I told you earlier, now the Minister of Communications wants this thing gazetted to say that Starlink can be brought into the country without a 30% BEE cut for one company. That, by the way, is going to be collecting data from all of us. Because you see, the best way in most cases, if they were to come in legitimately and their intention was to advance this country, there'd be another level whereby they say there must be black-owned companies that will contract with us, and those companies collect the data from us. Then those companies connect to the satellite. That's a different story. But we can't have a situation where that satellite is going to connect directly to you and collect your information in terms of where you move and how you behave with the internet and how you interact. That questions our sovereignty. That questions, and like I said, in the cyber security and the cyber world that we live in, a number of issues. So I felt it's important that I highlight what is actually happening here. What they are wanting to do, bring about digitization of the identity, bring e-voting, rig the elections, make sure there's connectivity right up to the rural areas so that when they digitize, people can vote online and then they can rig the elections nicely come 2029. In actual fact, they won't even wait for 2029 as the way they are moving. They want to do it now for local elections. So all I'm saying, comrades, we can't let this situation perpetuate itself in the way and unfold the way it is. We need to make noise about it. We need to fight it with